making sure I hit all the right buttons.
Yeah.
Ryan, I
Yeah.
want to apologize to you first because I didn't even realize it was Sunday.
Ah, no, no worries, no
I thought,
worries.
wow, that was brazen on any day, but today it was brazen on a Sunday.
Ah, well, I have uh, distanced myself from nearly all modes of shame because of my last 5 years of whatever it has been. So I give infinite grace to those who seek to engage with me. So no shame here.
That's my mode of being also. So that really works for me.
Cool,
Um,
cool.
1 second, I gotta fix something. I just made my screen do something I didn't expect. Okay, there we go. Um, so this morning you responded to a post I made in
Yeah.
purple space. And you are a particularly purple person a lot in a lot of ways. And I consider myself a very purple person, but you are so like you're so overtly a purple person. It seems really worth mentioning.
Well, you know that that does have to do with partially with how I and so you got my purple bass clef hat here and purple background number one, purple background number two, and my favorite purple background, which is this one. But um, so there you go.
You do a lot of really beautiful conversations about musicality that I've
Mm.
caught glimpses of. And you seem to really attune in terms of energy. In fact, what you asked me before we got on the line if you could record with an AI so that you could focus on the energy of our conversation and not have to like catch all of the words. Um,
Yeah,
and that is immediately relevant to what I wanted to have a face-to-face with you about.
yeah,
If I may read your question from the purple space comment that
sure.
you made.
Yeah,
What you were very complimentary, which I so appreciate. And the question you asked was, is our Substack, our intuitivepublicradio.substack.com, is it for people who already know about our work, or is it intended to be an on-ramp into our universe?
yeah.
And the tricky thing about this for us is that I and everyone who has co-created the intuitive network, we're all experiencing very severe neurological injuries and other injuries
Mm.
that people are typically assumed to not be able to recover from. Past a certain threshold of severity, there are not professional organizations who know what to do. They think, oh, that's too severe. We
Mm.
don't know how to handle that. And so we, in the circumstances that we found ourselves in, we say, "Hey, wait a second, we're not dead. Don't just leave us here. We can communicate." But the thing is, past a certain threshold of severity, the communications can really change. And one of the things
Mm.
that comes up in the body for the survival of the body is creative expression, is non-linear expression,
Mm.
dream languaging, symbology, archetypes, musicality,
Mm.
poetry. And so for me, as I've been developing the platform for Intuitive Public Radio from a place of complete inability to communicate without
Mm.
support, very severe brain damage. What I have had to do for myself and in helping one another in the network where we've connected all of these very severely disabled people who have nowhere else to go for help, we've had to center free expression,
Mm.
metafiction. What is the story that is being told through whatever we're experiencing, not necessarily in a linear way, not in a modern sort of normative organized way, but in just the flowing out of the story, like a dream state, like a song. And so when you ask that question, I just, well, one thing was I thought if I could answer him face to face, that would be a completely different experience.
Oh, I totally, I am bubbling with curiosity about the journey that you have taken through the injury and where you are in healing, and I think now where you are in, retrospection. I mean, what is the origin story of this? And I think that may help me also center in on how you're seeking to move forward. So, um,
Well, many of us, I would say most or all of us, depending on the languaging being used, what is at the origins of this kind of experience is either some kind of physical violence that someone's experienced. People have accidents, but also people encounter other kinds of physical violence. But overwhelmingly, many people are being exposed to pollution, environmental contaminants in their environments that very powerful interests have seeded a lot of uncertainty about whether that actually hurts people or whether it doesn't hurt people at all, and they're just crazy. They're just making something up. I have had a number of different toxic injuries that resulted in essentially concussion symptoms in a lot of different ways. And then because people in my communities didn't know what to make of that, they thought that I must be making it up. And so it got worse. And then I was left to intersections by myself as a very severely disabled person. And I discovered that there were human trafficking influences in those environments who knew how to commoditize people like me. So a lot of the people in our network have encountered these kinds of violence where the neurological injuries get so compounded that people don't understand how to communicate with one another.
That the people who have been impacted by these injuries are challenged to communicate with one another as well as with those who they interact, or is it both? All, yeah.
Both and
Okay.
one of the major things that connects us and supports increased function in communications is if we make a lot of space for including creative ways of communicating and different kinds of languaging that might be unusual, might be kind of confusing at first, but anybody who really enjoys dense, complex fiction is
Yeah.
already encountering that kind of thing, or really intricate styles of music making or poetry.
Yeah.
That it's a mode that actually it makes certain kinds of communications much more immediately accessible. And so once the most severely disabled survivors were able to start connecting with one another through the infrastructure that we built, the ways that we've helped other people recognize that we're here, this isn't an unnavigable situation, but when we bring story into it, when we bring dream modality into it, people can start to realize, oh yeah, I have an inner life like this too. I experience traumatic stuff kind of like this too. And the ways that we all heal from trauma are, I mean, it's along those lines. We lean into something that's creative and meaningful in that way.
Okay. The 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 question also that came to me, that the phrasing of radio, right?
Mm.
That this is, that you're broadcasting, right? So this is that you're the music that's playing on this station, if you hear it, you dig it, come here and you'll get a lot more, right? That's and the I mean, it's such an interesting so there's a that I have this inner uh drama symphony performance art happening, um and you do, and that's universal, right? So that regardless of how we have been injured or what our experiences, that the experiences we live, it's this is the purple thing, this is Sonder, once you get the idea that, oh, you've got this whole world that you're seeing me in this way and I'm seeing others in this way. Um, and and I'm trying to tune into the distinction between someone who has not been injured in the same way, and the distinction between who it's for and who it and when it if you're hearing this station out there, yeah, I don't get it, but there's some folks who really get it.
Yeah.
And so there's that, there's this, the affiliation, okay, so you've encountered this, you're searching for something on the web, you're searching for something specific, you come across the intuitive public radio, you know and there's something of the funnel, you click, and you get to this space, okay. And once I arrive, what is the feeling that you intend, that if the next person who enters this space, for example, what do you want them to feel? What is your intention for them as they arrive into that space?
So I'll follow this sensing that I'm doing in this.
Yeah.
For me, having had to be the point woman for a lot of people who could not communicate as well as me, who did not have, I had a lot of privilege in terms of, I was in media and tech, I was in marketing communications
Yeah.
before I had these injuries. And so I found myself in the position where, all right, if I'm going to say anything about this, I need the people I connect with as a result to be giving me that breadth of creative expansion, or else I can't communicate. If people need me to communicate in a really specific box, sometimes I can do it, but a lot of the time it shuts down my functions because I still
Mhm.
have a lot of repair to do. So the people that we would have to be reaching would have to be people who recognize the value of that creative depth being a continuous part of the storytelling we're all doing together, and
Mhm.
be taking seriously the embedded serious information about how to connect with people at these intersections. Make sure you're not missing
Mhm.
all the invisible people around you,
Mhm.
because that's what
Ooh.
prevents people from being preyed upon. If I
The
know you and you know me, I'm not being taken advantage of by perpetrators. But if you don't know who I am and you don't understand my communications, perpetrators have free reign.
mm. So that's, and this is, and again, I'm trying to feel into, because the idea of providing a, in the, not an armor, but this protective field, right? So for people, so you mentioned the susceptibility of folks who have been injured in this way to really nasty, dark stuff, this human trafficking thing. That if by tuning in to intuitive public radio and coming into your space, um, you are affording them the uh, the ability to build the skills to, to emanate that energy, is that, oh, now that I'm here, I'm with others who will give me the grace to communicate in the way that I need to communicate and create, right? So this creative space also helps me learn how to protect myself in the wider world, so this kind of, come into this, I mean, for me, it's always this cafe place, this is the place I always go when I want to get this nourishment, that I come here, I can tell the story I want to tell, play the music I want to play, you know, write the poetry in the book, whatever, it's a performing art or some kind of, individual expression, so there's this particular, yeah, again, the listener, the person who wants to come dance and be with that, is that they have a vulnerability um, to to what is your experience as to how aware that your listeners, right? So I want to use the radio metaphor here, that your listeners, um, what is their awareness of their vulnerability?
Wide ranging. And
Okay.
our primary approach is yes, to provide a place of acceptance and safety for people who don't know where else to go, who need to express themselves in these creative ways in order to express themselves at all, but also, very importantly, to bridge between them and others who have not had these experiences. But there are a lot of people who have never been severely affected in these ways, who want to make sure they're not abandoning people in their communities. They don't
Mm.
want there to be swaths of invisible people being preyed upon by criminal
Um,
networks right in their midst. They don't
uh,
want that. So we're creating the communications bridge in every way that we can. And my personal ability to simplify the entry points has had to evolve a lot, and I'm still working on it.
yeah. Well, the way you describe your own this own inner genius, your daemon, that is to receive so much, and you're that what it sounds like. I mean, some folks would be totally, you know, overloaded by that level of intensity in receiving that.
Yeah.
Where it seems like for you that it allows a flow of energy, through you to create with that. Um, this idea. So there's the invisible people. There's the the place of communication, the developing understanding and comfort and um, safety, which is, I mean, that's so, it's such a word. It's like love, truth, all this stuff. I mean, it's those that word. I mean, it could be, but there's a danger, right? So when we talk about safety, the way I think about it, that clarifies it for me is that, okay, so if I want to go to a safe place, I want to be protected from danger. What kind of danger am I am I susceptible to? And if I'm invisible, you know, if I'm invisible to the wider world, but these folks have the lenses that they can see me and seek me out for their nefarious purposes, well, I may not realize I'm invisible. I think that may be part of it.
Mhm.
And that so there's you want to help them become visible, right? And visible
In the
maybe
ways
to,
that are right for them at the right time.
oh, absolutely. So, and this is, and I understand that totally, that each of our communication modalities is that wide ranging you're talking about. So that sense of visibility and acceptance and that growing from invisible to visible. And then if your listener, by listening, gets that strength to sing, and sing their song, right? And say, oh, there's someone in my community who has this desire to help uh, make the community better, make it more inclusive or accepting, or to be not so much this kind of victim rescuer thing. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
that's it. I mean, because there's a certain kind of pathology to that as well, of course. Um, but there's this. It feels like that what you're going for, and you can totally just strike it down, and say no, no, no. If it's not, but it's this connection point, right? So we're connecting horizontally with each other as we have this shared, some level of shared experience around injury and communication, that we want to get from talking past or around. We want to get more of that.
Mhm.
And so there's and there's also this sense of communicating, um, again, out to this external body, so there's the question in my mind, the challenge is that, okay, so what is first? What is next? If you do one first, which one do you do first? And then when you have the sense of, oh, I know I have this tribe of folks who are here, who come here regularly, and whatever model of sustainability you have for keeping the business model or whatever. But then, okay, so there's this group of people, and the folks who desire to join to play a different role, right? Yeah, I mean, again, I say this protector, but and so I think I'm getting a clearer picture on the kind of space that you want to create, and the kind of um the service that you're providing. So there's protection from harm, becoming visible, becoming audible,
Yeah.
right? To
Yeah.
be seen, heard, and understood,
Yes.
right? Um, so that, I mean, that gives me a little bit of a goosebump there to think I mean, it's what you're going for. If we who share this bond of injury and this uh, what this desire to communicate, but the struggle for that, um, we share that. There's these other these other forces that have to happen. So okay, so that was a pretty long riff there.
It was
Um
great.
uh so hearing that and kind of hearing how I've tried to make sense of where you are and what you're seeking to make happen. What are you receiving now, and where is your curiosity at the moment? Where would you like to go from here?
I want us to increasingly, I mean, we not necessarily just you and I in this conversation, but
Mm-hmm.
broadly, to increase the clarity that allows people to recognize from whatever life experience, severe experiencing or I mean, whatever the opposite of severe experiencing is, people are just fine. But often people who are just fine, they're not necessarily just fine at all. They might seem to be just fine. They might be signaling privileges that allow them to keep their resourcing while having really terrible struggles privately in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so to the greatest extent that we can create that connection where many different kinds of people can recognize, oh, we are all in the same story together. We have ways to share nourishment with one another rather than being totally cut off from one another, rather than being afraid of one another, rather than feeling threatened by one another, rather than mischaracterizing one another. We can be in the story together and really be strengthened by it.
Mm-hmm. And what else?
Well, conversations like this one are awesome. So more of this.
Okay. Ah.
I mean, there's a
Hmm.
lot more that I could say.
Yeah, yeah.
Income
Um,
generating vocational platforms are key in our approach because most of the people we're talking about are cut off from economic participation. There's no flow of Federal Reserve notes into these spaces. They don't have a way to buy food. They don't
mm,
have a way to get medical care because people don't understand what's happening with them. So these are communications bridges that we can create that then flows resourcing. And then instead of
mm,
letting part of the community body be like lopped off, we're working with the whole body. We're helping the whole body recover, whereas people thought that was impossible. But we know that it's not impossible. That's why I'm alive and talking to you today.
mm. Um, I really feel like there's, and again, please say I'm not comfortable or whatever, that the power of your story, right? That's, do you out there, listeners in the world, do you have a story that's kind of like this? And then let me tell you a bit about my story. I don't know how comfortable you are with that and being public in the
That's
in the radio station.
that's the platform, is me saying, okay, everybody else has to be real private for safety. And I was already a public person and my stuff is already public. So
Perfect.
here I am telling you about
So
me.
this is your purple squirrelness, right? That yeah. So for me, it's whatever, it's corporate IT and music and all that stuff that folks might find valuable, that whatever. But the confluence for you, and again, I'm remembering my very brief visit to the site, but there's this videos of the conversations that you have, and that there's, I mean, there's a podcast, there's video, there's also this written, I mean, there's a whole media buffet, right? Um, mm, mm. So yeah, the Meganness of this, the yeah, so the marketing background, I mean, that telling this is like the origin story. There's a guy who does this really wonderful. He has a great book about it, and it's a guy named Michael Margolis. Are you familiar with him?
That, his name sounds familiar, but I don't remember from where.
It's Storied, I think, was his venture before. Get Storied is his thing, but Story 10x is the thing. I mean, and again, knowing what you know and kind of knowing where we are and how we met, you probably have certain names that you go to when you want to tune into Pema Chodron and Steam Pressfield
Yeah.
and all the folks. So I don't think, you're not saying you need another tool. You got all the tools you need. Um, but one thing that I found interesting with the way that Margolis did, and this is a free workshop I did, but this was about I got Zoom. It tells me I have 10 minutes, but no. All right. Um, if I can find it, I'll share some of the prompts with you that may I don't know, clarify or maybe distill the story that you have.
Yeah.
Um, do you have permission from others in the space to tell, and again, maybe it's, I don't know how personal, maybe to tell their stories in some public way?
Yes,
Some folks I'm sure I know would be like, "Oh, no," but others may be open to it.
to certain extents we do. However, because my disabilities are still much more severe than it appears from me being on camera,
Yeah.
all of us have come to the realization that we have to get resourcing in to get people to help us write and edit, or to make the notes
Mhm.
for broadcasting, because otherwise it's not organized well enough for people to understand it. And the people communicating it are in real trauma. So we
Mhm.
have, there's this challenge of, okay, we need the resourcing in order to do the thing in the way that people can understand, but we've got to do it in the way that people can understand in order to flow the resourcing. So it's
Yeah.
that situation.
Complex problem.
It's a great game.
But
We're very
yeah.
activated by it.
So here's, and I like that you brought the game into it, because one of the concepts that I stumbled along into is this idea of this four-part game structure in the game design, that for a good game, that you don't really only need four things. You need some kind of clear purpose. Why are we playing? Why do we want to play catch, or why do we want to play stock market, or whatever? Um, we have a clear purpose and a goal in mind. Win the game, score a lot. A very clear set of roles. Kind of, this is the way we play the game here. This is the people like us do things like this. This is the do things like this part, right? And then a way of tracking progress or keeping score a little bit. But and that could be, you know, if we get together for dinner, hey, we're gonna show up at my house at 7 o'clock, you know, bring a drink and we'll have stuff and we'll chat for 15 minutes and then we'll dinner and then dessert, coffee, and then, you know, around 10 o'clock we'll disperse. You know, so that's tracking progress by in terms of time, you know. So I go into this place, I've been invited in to do this thing very specifically that I know, have a great meal with friends and you know, have camaraderie. And you know, and we have kind of the rules and norms, and then we have this time practice, and then the fourth part, the critical part is that it's opt-in. I'm volunteering. I'm exercising my agency to say I want to go here and do this thing, right?
Yeah.
So if I think of that, you know, what is the game you've designed, and how are people, how do folks learn how to play it, you know? Yeah, so in that engagement and fun, and there's this great book about that one. This is not from the Sethverse. It's called Reality is Broken.
Oh yeah.
Um,
That's
Jane
I
McGonigal.
yes. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so that's where that kind of came to me through a mentor of mine in that 4-part game structure, and it applies in that James Carse, you know, the finite and infinite game
Oh
stuff,
yeah.
you know, in that you are the game designer. I mean, and that's okay to have that singularity to it. And you know, there's participatory design too. And you know, from marketing background that's, you know, that we're all better together when we design together. So yeah, what's the game? What's the invitation? What will people experience when they're there? And what is winning? Essentially, you know, winning small finite games within the infinite game of affiliation, right?
This is my favorite frame. I'm so delighted that you brought this in, especially like we're watching the clock because we know we're going to get cut off. That it's one of our most important frames. And thank you for the names and the titles that you brought in there too. That's so important.